The Tao of Self-Confidence, Episode 87. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of successful women finding their inner journey to self-confidence 5 days a week. Subscribe to our newsletter by visiting thetaoofselfconfidence.com. Well, hello, friend. Welcome to the Tao of Self-Confidence, where I share stories of amazing women who have discovered their inner journey to self-confidence. I'm your host today, Sheena Yap Chan, and today's guest, I have an amazing woman here. She has her own successful podcast as well, which is called Positive Impact, and, she's just killing it, and I had to have her on the show so she could share her story about self-confidence and what she had to go through, just in her life in general. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Alexandra. Alexandra, how are you today? Maybe you can fill in a little bit about yourself to the listeners.
Sheena, thank you so much for having me. And I do have to say, I absolutely love your show as well. So it's a huge honor to be here. As for me, my podcasting journey was kind of the intersection of work with nonprofits as well as a marketing career. And each side of the house didn't necessarily fulfill what I was looking for. And so the Positive Impact podcast was just a great opportunity to bring together my love of marketing and cultivating community and bringing people together with that, positive drive and the heart of a nonprofit and just people making the world a better place.
I love it, and especially in a world today where there's so much, bad news. And I don't really want to say that. We just need more people out there just spreading, positive news, positive information, and just attracting the right kind of vibration in the world. So, I'm really glad your podcast has been doing so well. I've seen it on the New and Noteworthy and iTunes and Top of the Business podcast. So it's really cool, just to see it come from, you started with, not realizing what you were going to do, and now look where it's been. So congratulations. And, Alexandra, what's your cultural background?
So I'm actually Caucasian, and I'm originally from Idaho, which is, it's a fairly large state, but as far as population size, it's definitely one of the smaller states in the U.S., but really great community, really fun place to grow up.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And, what would be your favorite self-confidence quote?
It was really funny going over this question and just trying to decide what it was. And lately, and especially navigating the podcast, it's been just do it from Nike. And then I always have to follow up with, what's the worst thing that could happen? A lot of times when you go into things that are really scary or intimidating, you just have to go through and really evaluate, well, what's the worst case scenario? If I reach out to this podcast guest and they say no, well, what's the worst that happens? Nothing. But if you never do it, you'll never know. And so that one has really been a guiding star through this entire process.
I totally agree with you when it comes to what's the worst that could happen because sometimes I get nervous when I ask someone who has probably way more authority than I do. And I'm like, I'm doing a podcast about self-confidence, and here's me being a chicken shit asking somebody, and the worst thing they could say is no, right? And then I move on. It's not a big deal. Even if there's a boy that you like, it's like, oh, I'm so scared to talk to him. What's the worst is he going to say? Get away from me? And if he does, then it's his loss, right? So, if you can handle it, then just go ahead and do it, right? I heard this term, just take the action and regret it later.
Right? And it's so funny because rarely do you actually regret it. Of course, there are some that you'll regret, but most often it's the actions that you don't take that you regret. And so I really challenge our listeners, if there's something that you've been thinking about doing, go out and just do it and see what happens. And that's how you start making change.
Totally. I totally agree. So I really love that quote that you mentioned. And, in your own words, how would you define self-confidence?
For me, it really came down to understanding and appreciating my own value. And this can take a spectrum. And so wherever you are in your life, whether it's your work, if you're starting your own business, if you're volunteering or on a committee, it's really understanding and appreciating your own values and what the value that you bring. A lot of times that just takes you sitting down and saying, this is what I bring to the table. So then when you go to these situations that are hard or maybe you're being pushed to the side, you say, no, this is the value that I have and the experience I have backing me. So I know that when I, commit to the situation, I have something to offer. And that's really what it's been for me. And that's kind of where my journey led me to, was just really understanding and appreciating the value that I brought to the table.
And I like that you mentioned that, bringing the value that you have, knowing your own value, because especially as women, we tend to undervalue ourselves, right?
Maybe totally.
I'm guilty of it. I mean, maybe it's society to always telling us, you're never good enough. And, those little things can really affect us in a big way. And we just don't realize, or we're not as aware as we think we are. But, I've even read this article how women aren't, they're afraid of selling themselves because society tells them it's being too aggressive and not ladylike, which really is just bullshit. But
agreed, 100%. And it's very frustrating. And you get into a lot of the other issues, and especially, women who are moms. And they're caught in this basically unfathomable situation of, damned if you do, damned if you don't. You either, if you stay at home, all the other women look at you like, how dare you? And then when you go to the workplace, everyone's like, why aren't you staying at home? And so it's just really understanding the value that you bring to whatever situation you're in and saying, I am valuable, and this is why, and I'm just going to go forward and do it.
Yeah, totally. And, who cares about what everyone else thinks, right?
Exactly. Who are they to be critiquing your life anyways?
That's so true. And, I'm glad you mentioned that definition of self-confidence. I really like that definition, because sometimes we really have to realize that we are more valuable than we realize. So thanks again for sharing that. And, what was your life like before your discovery of self-confidence?
It was very frustrating. It was not fun. It really wasn't. I was working at a nonprofit, and it was a great nonprofit. They were doing the best that they could for the community, and as far as pay structure and number of hours that I could work, and it was just frustrating. And, I knowing that I had so much more to offer an organization, but at the same time, really struggling with this guilt and loyalty if I thought about leaving this organization. So I was really at an impasse, and it was a very miserable and bitter impasse that I was stuck at. And that's kind of where this whole journey to self-discovery of my value and having to really put my foot down and say, I am valuable and here's why. And then following it up with saying, I'm actually going to work towards this. And I won't say that it's easy. It definitely wasn't for me. And I reached out to an amazing career coach who walked me through that. And I'm so glad I did that, because after having that kind of discovery, it's really changed my life.
Awesome. And I like how you mentioned that, you worked at a non-for-profit agency, and, that question of loyalty, like, you've been with them for so long, and it's sometimes hard to leave because you've been with them so long, and then you want to start something new, but sometimes you're kind of afraid of the unknown. But sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith, right? Mm-hmm. Knowing you have what it takes to create something that can really make an impact, right? I mean,
that's what I'm going for.
And I mean, and a lot of people stay stuck because they're so loyal, or they feel like, I have to stay here because, that this is where I belong. It's been all I've ever known, and I don't know what will happen if I just step out of that, right? So I'm really glad you were able to get someone who was able to help you take that steps through to be able to do things that you are doing today, to be on your own journey and realize that you can do things, outside of that agency. And, when you realize going through that coach and having her mentor you, what's your life like now?
It's actually a lot more fun. And I'm able to approach things differently, which I think is the most exciting point, because I not only understand my value, but I also understand the things that I value in my life. And that's been huge for me, even having the ability to turn things down that don't fit in with my life. After I left the nonprofit, I was offered a full-time job, and it was just at an organization that I wasn't necessarily inspired by, but I was able to take this contracting role with another marketing agency and really kind of put myself on this journey towards entrepreneurship. And by doing that and really understanding my values and what I had to offer, I was able to negotiate higher rates for what I was paid. I was able to take and explore different opportunities. And one of the most exciting things that kind of has come through this whole journey is my husband and I actually made the decision, kind of going through this whole process as well, that we're going to move to Thailand. And we will be living off of my income, because there's not necessarily work for him in Thailand. And it's a completely different place. After going through that journey, it was more rewarding, more fulfilling. And overall, I just am in such a better place, both with my self-confidence, with what now is my business, and kind of my life values and what I want for my life.
Awesome. I'm so excited for you to go to Thailand. That's going to be such an amazing experience. And, it's a totally different environment. Maybe you might have a small culture shock. I'm not sure.
I think there'll be a big one.
Okay. I didn't want to say I didn't want to assume and be like, you're going to have a big culture shock. I just you might have a small one.
Oh, no, it's going to be big.
Okay.
But that's the exciting thing, right? It's let's just do it. We're at a point in our life that we would never be able to do this again because, there might be a house on the horizon. There's definitely going to be dogs. The whole kid conversation comes up at some point. And so we just looked at it and said, why not? What's the worst that could happen if we go and live in Thailand for a couple months? So
I love it. You're like, why not? So many people are probably saying, why would you do that? Like, why? Right?
Oh, they are.
And you're like, why not? Life is too short. I want to go. I have the chance to do it. Someday never comes, and now's the only time to take action in that. And I like when you said when you let go of the non-for-profit agency, something popped up. It's amazing what happens when one door closes and another one opens, right? And it kind of came in an instant, right?
We'll define instant as a little bit longer. But, leveraging your community, your network, just surrounding yourself with that supportive group, it's amazing the number of opportunities that pop up. And once you start looking, and if you are in the position where you're starting to look for jobs or you're trying to find something that you're more valued at, build a network, build a community. That will never go wrong for you.
Awesome. And thanks for sharing that. So, Alexandra, to the woman who's listening to your episode, maybe she's inspired to do something crazy like move to Thailand. And, she's on her own journey to self-confidence. What would be that one tip you would give to her?
I would really recommend kind of two things. One is do an inventory of your strengths and really define your value. And if you need to reflect on that fairly often during your journey, that's okay. Understand that you have to offer, understand skill sets that you're growing, and see progress. That's going to help you define your value. And then most importantly, surround yourself with individuals who believe and support you. There's this great quote, it's Jim Rohn, and it's, you are the average of 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you're on a journey and you want to get somewhere, surround yourself with people who are both on that journey and a little bit farther ahead of you. So if you're, looking to move to Thailand, I would recommend surrounding yourself with digital entrepreneurs or digital nomads. And that's what we've done. And they're people that we can bounce questions off of, say, how do you do health insurance in Thailand? How do you travel? Are you sure this was a good idea? But no matter what your journey is, and no matter where it is that you want to go, that community will always give you the strength and confidence to go forward.
I love that. And it's so true, surrounding yourselves with like-minded people. I mean, we're in the same podcast community, and that community alone is such a great support, just
it really is
helping us along the way, which I'm truly grateful for. So, thanks for sharing those tips. And Alexandra, if our listeners wanted to check out your podcast and get to know a little bit more about you, is there any links or social media profiles we can connect with?
Why, yes. thepositiveimpactpodcast.com is where the show is. It's also on iTunes, and you can check it out there. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Twitter at impact_podcast, and on Instagram, I'm at Positive Impact Podcast. And I would love to connect with you. Feel free to ask me any questions or just connect and follow and be inspired by my show as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners, if you want to connect with Alexandra, just head on over to thetaoofselfconfidence.com and search for Alexandra's name. Her show notes will pop up along with everything else we talked about. And I just want to thank Alexandra for taking the time to share her story and journey with us. So thank you so much.
Yeah, this was fun.
Awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed the show. And to our listeners, be on the lookout for another new amazing show of another amazing woman's journey to self-confidence. And we'll catch you later. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to another amazing episode of The Tao of Self-Confidence. Check out our resources to help you jumpstart your inner journey to self-confidence by visiting thetaoofselfconfidence.com.